G'day folks, welcome to another episode of Learn to Paint TV. Rod Moore from the Learn to Paint Academy here with you again. Got an exciting little project this week. This week we are going to have a go at this little cottage that I found in Malmesbury. Malmesbury is a country town in Victoria. Okay, step one of the Moore method of painting is getting our drawing in. And as I said in the intro, the most important thing here is just to get this little cottage right. The rest of it will take pretty much care of itself. You wait and see. So we'll just get some of this French ultramarine blue. I've got a little touch of the thinner. I'm using water mixable oils. If you're using acrylics, it's exactly the same process. Where I use a little bit of thinner, just use a little bit of water, just a little touch of the water. Or if you're using a medium, a medium that comes with your acrylic paints, whenever I use thinner, just use a little bit of yours, right, for the acrylics. So I'm mixing up here just the blue and the red, nice loose running mix. That's going to be our drawing, paint for drawing here. And our goal here is just to get big shapes. So if we come back to our photo here for a moment and we have a look at that, and we have to ask ourselves, if we were to clump things together, right, like objects together, how many big shapes do we have? Well, we've got and I'm just talking the outlines of big shapes, right? So if we treat the cottage as one big shape, then we've got that sort of foreground trees in front of the cottage. Then we've got the distant tree line behind the cottage, right? So that's three big shapes. The sky is 4 and the road is 5. We're going to change the road up, okay? So yeah, just slightly too far that way. So let's just try again. And I think I had the angle pretty much right. That's probably not right, about there, I think. And then we run that one to there, okay? That wall comes to about there, and then that wall comes to there. That's a good starting point for us to get in. We know that we've got a little bit of a lean-to situation right about there, and we'll have to make some modifications to that. It's probably not quite pleasing enough. I might just run that into there. Okay, and then that one to there. Then if we run that one to there, it does disappear, so that's good. It disappears behind the tree. Okay, we've got this chimney that is running. Chimney is one of the harder parts of getting this drawing in, but we'll refine it as we go. Right, it's probably a little bit wider than that. And that roof runs to about there. Okay, and then this is where it starts to get a little bit easier. Well, just before I say that, let me just run in that veranda there. Veranda post. Okay, got a little window there. Don't worry about these inner details just yet. I'm just putting it there just to help you understand where we're up to with this. Okay, so that roof line runs through, and then what we've got is this foreground tree, major foreground tree right there. It sits around about there. There's another one that runs up a little touch higher. So there's a lot of foliage in this painting, which is why I said before that the drawing becomes so much easier, right? In the background we've got these something like that. And then from here we've got another little row of trees in the sort of distance there, but we probably want to have a little path running into there. So friends, that's one of the advantages of the Moore method of painting, is that we can simplify a really complicated subject and just bring it down to its bare bones, the basic outline. And if you can get that right, if you can put these shapes in the right place on the canvas, then you're off to the right start. The next step then is to get the right value structure starting to happen in these big shapes. We're going to get our values right, and we're going to work from our darkest darks here of the foreground bush and back, and then get the value of the house right. And if we can get those right, then we've made a good start to this painting. So let's have a look at our step 2, get our values in. First thing I always do is look for where are my darkest darks. And we have to look into the foliage of the trees to see where the darkest darks are usually. It's usually the shadow of the trees, right? So if you have a look at that big main foreground bush on the right hand side, you'll see that there's a lot of dark shadows in there. If you look at the trees further away, the shadows aren't as intense or as deep, right? So we're going to start there. I've got ultramarine blue, a little bit of phthalo green, and a little bit of the alizarin crimson, and that gives us what we call a chromatic black virtually. I've got phthalo green in there. It is a dark, that's why I've got the phthalo green in there as well. It's a little on the blue side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to warm it up slightly with a little bit of red. Throw at the top here. Usually I'd warm it up wherever I feel it's going to. That in there. And then we come to this sort of secondary bush here. Can pretty much use the same mix. I'll just lighten it back ever so slightly. Okay. And we'll just get a touch more of that green in there because it's a little blue. And a touch more of the red. Okay. And you can see that's the original mix there. And this is this mix here. There should be a noticeable difference. You know, this is going to be a lighter value. Okay, so we'll just pop that in. So then we've got trees up behind. Let's get a little bit lighter again. Okay, get a little bit of the red in there. So I'll use these for our. We could probably go a touch darker, I think. A little bit of yellow in there just to grey it so it's not too purple. And I think we can use this for these gum trees out the back here. I might even just lower that down a little. Identify it as any one particular type of tree. If you want to try and paint it close to what the what's in the photo, then by all means, you know, with a landscape, we're doing a landscape, but it's focused particularly on a tree in the landscape. That's when I pay a bit more attention. But really our subject here is that little cottage. Everything else is really a backdrop. Okay. Now just using that same combination of the blues, the reds and the yellows, I've just mixed up another mix here which needs to be a little bit darker in value than that one, but not as dark as these. Okay, I'll pop that in behind the little lean-to. Okay, and we've got a little clump of trees in the foreground there. Just sitting in there, so slight little distinguishing shifting values there. All right, that's grey, dark, murky colours there, but you wait, it'll come together nicely as we progress this painting. Because it's a flat plane, the foreground there, that field. Okay, it's merging a little bit with the shadow tone, because obviously that's still wet, but I'm okay with that. Because remember, we're just blocking in the undertone here. We'll work back over this with some highlight type colours. Put some texture in there. Probably could even get a little touch of green in there at some stage as well. In fact, I'll get a little pinhead of that green in there now. Just to white here, get some of this blue, a little touch of the yellow ochre. Okay. So this is the lower part of the sky, because I'm not going to paint it as quite as dark as what it is, but we'll certainly get it darker as we work our way up in the sky. But in a painting, not necessarily how it photographs, but in a painting, we have to always keep in mind that our sky is our source of our light. So therefore, we want to start at least painting it nice and light. Okay, I'm just working around some of these little spots in here. Okay, so now let's get some darker blue happening, and then we can blend those two together. So get some of this blue here. Don't want to make it too big of a jump, so I'll just lighten it off into there. Okay, I'll just lighten that back a little. Just work into that band in the middle there. Don't try and blend them together just yet, because what we'll do is get all that in, and then see I've got the brush is fairly loaded with paint, as you'd expect. So I'll just take my paper towel, and I won't wash the brush, but I'll just pull all of that excess paint out of there, so that there's far less paint in the brush. There's still obviously paint in there. That's okay, because we're still using the same paints here. And let me just come in here and we'll just feather all that together across those two bands. Okay. And then we'll do the same with this lighter tone here as well. Okay, well there you go folks. That's our step 2, our blocking done. And I think we're on track here. This is going to make for a nice little painting. When we get the house in and then we start to punch up some of these greens, you'll see it come to life. And what we need to do now is just let this all dry off. So if you're using acrylics, you want it to be bone dry. You need to wait for about an hour or two. If you're using oils, you want it to start to tack off. So it can be tacky, but you don't want it to be wet. Okay. So I'm going to leave this overnight, and I'll complete step 3 in the morning. And in step 3, it's where we start to, obviously we'll do the details and everything in on the cottage here, but it's also where we add our middle tones and our highlights and some details that'll bring this painting together as a nice little cottage scene. All right. So I'll see you after the break. Okay, welcome back folks. We're now going to do step 3 of the Moore method of painting, which is really where we start to bring the painting to life. It's our refinement, our details, highlights and so on. Left this overnight, it's had a chance to settle down, so we're good to go with step 3. So let's get underway. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to work on just getting in some of our basic tones into our little cottage here. We'll start out with the building there, or the roof, sorry, not the building. We'll start out with the roof. Now, it's a light red tone, so I'll just mix up a light red with the alizarin. But notice when I add white to that alizarin there, I'll just come down to the palette cam for a sec. When I add white to that, it goes sort of pinky, which is not quite what we want. It's a little bit more on the orange side, so we'll add a little touch of the yellow ochre to it. Still a little bit pink, so I'll get a little touch of blue in there as well, and that's maybe too much, but the blue to grey it back a little bit so it's not so punchy. Okay, a little bit more yellow ochre, so it's pushing it to a sort of an orangey tone, And I'll add a little bit more red back into that. Okay, it's getting closer. Let's just try that. Up here. And that's not bad. It's a little bit, possibly a little bit too dark. I'll add a little bit more white into that. And let's try that. It's just a punch more red, I think. I'll add a little bit of the cadmium yellow light, or Indian yellow, just to brighten it back up a little. Okay, that's getting there. I might lay that down as a general tone for it, and if we need to at the end, if it's not vibrant enough, then we can come in and adjust it towards the end. But I think as a starting point, I prefer to keep it a little bit more muted initially, and then we can work to brighten it up rather than going too bright initially. And then through the tree line here, we're going to see a little bit of that roof in parts. I won't overly detail it just yet because we will be making adjustments, obviously. So we'll give that brush a little bit of clean. So I'm using this more medium-sized brush at the moment. So I feel that is probably appropriate for the space we're working in. Now, in here we've got more of a shadow tone in here and then a lighter tone on that wall there. So for our shadow tone, we'll get some white, we'll get some ultramarine blue, some alizarin crimson, and a little pinhead of the yellow. Okay, we'll mix those together. It's a little bit stiff, so I'll get just a touch of thinner in there. Okay, so that's a bluey grey. And just looking at it, it's probably a touch more on the yellow side-ish. But it's also probably a touch darker than that, so a little bit more blue and a little bit more red. Okay. Should have mixed up more paint than that, but we'll see how we go with that. Yeah, that's a bit too yellow. A little bit more blue into that. So it's almost the same value as my palette. Difficult to see there. That's a bit better. It's a bluey sort of grey. Bring that up to there. And look, there's a little bit of a sort of little fence post in there, but for the moment I'll just block all that in like so. Okay, and then there is a darker passage in there which looks like the door, right? So I'll mix up the blue and the red. Now that's a big jump, so compared to what we've just put down. So I'll add a little bit of white into that. Let's just pop in a door-like shape right about there. It's kind of, it looks like at one stage it was kind of a yellowy tone. So I'll just push it slightly yellow. There's a bit of blue still in that mix. Came out of the brush, I suspect. But let's just see how this will look. Okay, that's probably pretty close actually, I think, to the value and tone and so on that we want. The chimney is sort of a yellow, or it's been painted white. It would have been a red brick, probably a nice red brick at one stage, but somewhere along the line it's been painted a creamy white colour, and it's catching all the sunlight. So let's just get that in. There, and it's catching a little bit of sunlight on the left hand side at the bottom. And then the rest of it in a bit of shadow, so I'll just take some of that shadow tone and I'll mix it in there. And a little bit of phthalo green to punch it up, and a touch of white. Okay, let's have a look at that. Let's see that phthalo green really overpowers it there. So what we'll do is we'll take some more cadmium yellow light and we'll pop it to one side. Okay, we'll just introduce a little bit of that cadmium, that phthalo, and a tiny little pinhead of the red in there as well. Okay, now this is going to be fairly punchy when I put it up there. It's going to maybe not look right, potentially, because of the contrast of all the other darks. But let's just see, it is fairly punchy in the photo there. Let's just see, it's going to be, maybe it just wants a touch of yellow ochre in it just to give it a slightly more muted feel to it. And I'm just going to use the brush and just sort of pull down the foliage here. Okay, the key here is not to overwork it, but to try and just shape up your foliage as we go. So it should be a little bit of separation from the first tree there. Try and get these gum tree looking ones out the back. Adding a little bit more yellow ochre and the alizarin crimson into this mix here. Okay. And a little bit of the white. Lighten it back. And let's just see, that's shifted that green quite a bit from what we were painting there, which will help us create that depth. And again, we just want to create those mushroom sort of shapes. Don't worry about the gap there where I've left the sky to come through, because I'm going to put in some sky holes and so on in there. Put in some branches. Okay. There's a couple of lighter ones in there, which we'll just make sure we get those in. Rather than just as a demonstration that we're doing here, then you can take a little bit more time with getting those trees just right. A few of the greens in there that could probably be improved and so on in terms of their accuracy, but what I've shown you, the way I've approached it there, is it's a serviceable way to get a whole lot of foliage in there fairly quickly. Okay. And let's just start laying some of that in. So I've got it slightly on the green side. Come up to these shadows and then we can just flick up some little bits of grass over these shadows like so. Just use the side of the brush and just push them up over the shadows. And that just creates a bit of a layering effect. See that? Just flick those up. Requires just a lightish touch to get that flicking grass effect. Okay. Get a little bit redder as we come down. So it darkens it up as well. So I'm going for a little bit of variety into this field area here. Work back into that shape there a bit. Just put a little bit of cadmium yellow light into that as well. I'm just thinking that will warm it up, give it a more of a sunlight type of a feel. A version of it when a bit lighter as well. So I'll use my script liner brush now for a few detail marks. Now let's just get that lighter tone. So when you start using the script liner, it's always good to use some thinner, or if you're using acrylics, even a bit of water will do the trick. Okay. A few little marks, especially on that gum tree there, just indicates some tree branches and so on. And let us now come down to here. So just a few little details. Don't overly detail it. I think less is more usually with details, I find. It's very easy to get carried away with your details, but it doesn't necessarily improve your painting. And notice I'm doing these all fairly rickety rather than neatly. That's because it's a rickety old cottage. Okay, now I'll just get a slightly greyer version of all of that. A little bit lighter. A little bit lighter than that. Not the best brush to mix with, the script liner, but I do find myself falling into the habit of mixing with it. Something I should really work on. So in here we've got the remnants of a bit of a fence or something in there. So I'll pop that in, and I'll pop in some old fence line there. All a bit rickety and falling down, as you would expect. And here there is a, sorry, blocking this view there. There's a gate right there, and it's not as bright as I'm painting it. Deliberately painting it just that little bit brighter to make it stand out, and keep these lines all a little bit broken. Don't make them really solid lines. Street lamp or electricity pole. Don't have to do this, I'm just experimenting really. But there's definitely a pole around about there. Okay, and you might run down an indication of some power lines coming into the house, but very subtle. Don't make it a dominating feature of the painting, obviously. And in a few spots I think maybe we'll just lighten up the roof a bit. I've got a little bit of cadmium red there. I'll add in a touch of that, but if you don't have it, don't be worrying about that. Just use your alizarin. You can see that's fairly light. In fact, that's probably a better tone, isn't it? I'll paint that on, but I won't lose everything we've already done. Well, there you go, folks. Our little Malmesbury cottage Malmesbury, a little country town in Victoria, just to the northwest of Melbourne, the city. And it's a good little representation of, you know, what I took the photo of there. It's one of those type of paintings, there's so much more that you could do if you wanted to, but I wanted to try and keep this nice and simple and easy that anybody can follow along. But again, if you want to take it to a higher level of finish, then you can do that just as easily. Just follow the same steps, same principles apply, and just take a bit more time than what we've done, you know, in putting this painting together. Hope you've enjoyed it and you've learnt something from it. Thanks very much for watching. Now, if you haven't done so already, please go to the Learn to Paint Academy website and request our free course. You'll see the link in the menu there to the free course. I'll put the web address underneath me here. And for all the past episodes of Learn to Paint TV, again, the web address will be underneath me here, so go and check those out. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next week on Learn to Paint TV. Cheers.